My dad's had firecrackers blow up in his face. My dad's had been in lots of fights. My dad's had his hand caught in a glass machine twice. Almost burnt it off one time. And yet it was miraculously, he was able to get back. And yeah, he used doctors. But you know what? I think what happened there was a miracle. My dad's been in some difficult situations. And he's testified to me about how he knew that God was looking out for him, even though he was not saved. And he still knew deep down inside that there was a need there. But he didn't want to go be with the church people because he had been around them as a teenager, and he thought they were hypocrites. Well, here's Jacob, and God's blessing him while he's on the run from the plan that God has in his life. He's running from God, and yet we find, so he ends up at his destination in chapter 29. He's there, and he meets the most beautiful woman he's laid eyes on, his cousin. I heard someone say, ew. Come on, don't you got some beautiful cousins? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Jacob sees Rachel, okay? And she's the most beautiful woman he's laid eyes on. I hope I didn't just ruin that for you. But he sees her and he loves her from the moment he sees her. Okay? And so he loves her and he goes to her father and says, you know what, Uncle Laban? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said Uncle Laban. Your daughter is good looking. She's beautiful and I want to marry her. Right? I want to marry her. And I'm sorry here. I'm thinking, okay. Your daughter is beautiful and I want to marry her. And so they come up with the agreement. Jacob, you work for me for 7 years and I'll let you have my daughter. And Jacob says, hot diggity dog, I can give up 7 years. Just let me be next to my sweetie. She says, at the end of that 7 years, I'll let you have my daughter. And so Jacob goes to work, man. He's like, oh yeah, this is a woman for me. I know this is the woman that I want. And Jacob works a long 7 years. And he does good work for his uncle Laban. And matter of fact, God blesses Jacob's work just like God promised. And Jacob's doing well. And Laban and the workers are certainly noticing Jacob's blessing. And at the end of the 7 years, the time comes, the wedding date is set. It's at night apparently, because Jacob goes in and his bride comes in this veil, right? And you don't get to see her face because that was the custom of the wedding day. And he goes in, they get married, they go on their honeymoon. He wakes up the next morning and says, whoa! Leah! What are you doing in my bed? Where's Rachel? Where's your sister? His father Laban had tricked him and gave Jacob the older ugly sister. That nobody else, the old man that no one wanted to marry. It's like, whoa! Where's Rachel? Wait, no. I mean, imagine he walks out 10. No! Come on! I got duped. I'm the trickster. Nobody tricks the trickster. I make things happen. And there's a saying in the Bible that God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, he will also reap. You want to go around accomplishing things in your own flesh, in your own way, you just wait for it to come back on you. And you know what? I wonder sometimes if God in heaven is just kind of snickering and saying, yep. Yep. You're not going to mock me, boy. You're not going to mock me. And Jacob goes and he talks to Laban. And he says, what'd you do? And Laban comes up with his excuse. And he says, you know what? It wasn't right, man. Come on, look at this girl. She's my oldest daughter. She's not married yet. And he tries to play the sympathy card. It wasn't right. I had to make you marry her first. And he talks Jacob into saying, okay, work for me another 7 years and I'll give you Rachel. No! I don't want to work another 7 years. No! I've been here, God, I'm doing good. I'm starting to know my trade. I got this thing down. I'm a shepherd. I know this thing. And I can go out and do no! But I do love Rachel. Okay, I'll do it. He gets tricked into working, not only taking the wrong woman, but he gets tricked into working another 7 years. Another 7 of his years' life gone. working, but God blesses him. His flocks are just like, man, these are some crazy sheep that are just like productive, man. I wish we had sheep like that in the church. I mean, these sheep just like are productive, right? And they're working, and so the time comes, and I wonder if, at the wedding day, if Jacob kind of lifted up that veil and got a real quick peek. But he marries Rachel, who was the love of his life. And he ends up running away from his uncle Laban. And there's some stuff that was taken as the story goes on. And Laban catches up to him and says, why did you do this? And, they work it out. But, Jacob leaves behind him another fractured relationship. And you can say, well, that was Laban's fault. Well, I don't know. But Jacob leaves behind a fractured relationship there. Even though they seemed amended, I have no doubt that it was never the same after Jacob just up and left with his 2 daughters. And Rachel and Leah get into this baby-making competition. I mean, they're competing, and Leah is beating Rachel by far. I mean, she is winning the competition. She is producing the kids. And then Rachel comes along and finally, gets pregnant. She gives Jacob her concubine, which was a female servant, saying, here's a surrogate mother, and this will be our child. And they're competing with each other. And all this time, I mean, who knows what Jacob was thinking? I don't know if he was liking that or if he thought it was stressful. I don't know. But here he is, right? And they're competing with each other. But Jacob's family ends up growing, and Jacob's being prospered. And I don't know if Jacob knew he was running from God during this time. Just like some of us don't know we're running from God. You have a time in your life where you just think you're making decisions because you're used to doing things by habit and don't realize that some of the decisions you make, you're not asking God about them. You don't necessarily realize it. And Jacob, so he's going on with this life, but as he goes on, he gets word that his brother Esau is not too far from him. In chapter 32, we see that Jacob is coming, and he hears his brother Esau's not too far away, and Esau knows he's coming back. And Jacob starts to stress out, oh my goodness, this is the worst thing that could happen to me. My hunter brother Harry is going to kill me. Now, remember, his name was, he had red hair. It wasn't just hair. I think that's significant. You guys know how redheaded people can be. They're known for their tempers, right? Never want to get in a fight with a redheaded Irishman, right? I mean, here comes Esau, and Jacob knows about it, and he believes my life is in danger here. I have tricked my brother. I ran off with his inheritance, and he is going to kill me. And Jacob starts really stressing out. I mean, I imagine, you know that feeling, right? When you know that your life is in immediate danger, and now it's not just you. Now you've got, 2 wives. He had 2 wives. I don't have 1. I mean, now you got a wife and you've got kids, right? And now their lives are in danger. Now you have a family that you do love, and every one of them is in danger, and he doesn't know what to do, and he's stressing out about it. And it says in chapter 32, verse 22, and he arose that night and took his 2 wives and his 2 female servants and his 11 sons and crossed over to the Jabbok. And he took them and he sends them away so that Jacob was left alone because he wanted to protect them. And he leaves them alone. And it says in verse 25, verse 24, that a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. What was that about? He goes across this river and Jacob starts wrestling with this man. Who is this man that he's wrestling with? You know what? Can I make a brief rabbit trail off this? My dad liked to wrestle. That's why I kind of seen my dad in the story too. My dad liked to wrestle. My dad was a wrestler. Matter of fact, he took 3rd in the state championship. In high school, he took 3rd in the state championship in California in wrestling. My dad loved to wrestle, and you know what? Actually, us boys love to wrestle. I was probably the one that least liked to wrestle because, like I said, I don't like to play games I don't lose. I'd wrestle with my little brother because I could pretty easily subdue him, right? Well, here's Jacob. And he starts wrestling, right, with this man. And we find out, it says in verse 25, now when this is the guy, his opponent, when the opponent sees that he doesn't prevail against him, he touches Jacob's hip socket, and his hip ends up being displaced. And Jacob's still wrestling this guy. Now, why is he wrestling this man? Does Jacob know who he is? He's wrestling with this, and this guy has some kind of power, something, and he displaces Jacob's hip. But Jacob is a man who's determined to make something happen, and he still doesn't release him. But then he says in verse 26, he says, this man says to him, let me go, for the day is breaking. And Jacob says, I will not let you go unless you bless me. And this man asks him, what's your name? Why is he asking him his name? Apparently Jacob knew something, because we're told here that this was the angel of the Lord. It was an angel of the Lord, and some believe, and I can see why, that it was possibly an epiphany of a pre-incarnate Christ, maybe. But it was a messenger of God. The angel of the Lord is wrestling with him, and Jacob realizes this, and he's saying, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. You promised to bless me, and my brother is on his way to kill me. And I'm going to die, and my family's lives are in jeopardy. And yes, I'm wrestling, and you see how hard I'm striving with you, God. I'm striving, and yet here God displaces his hip, and he's saying, I'm still not going to let you go, because I am desperate, and my life hangs in the balance. And here's where he says, what's your name? That is an interesting question. Why does God ask Jacob what his name is? Because Jacob had to answer, my name is Jacob. Do you know what a name communicates about you? Your name communicates who you are. Now, my name David means beloved. And I realize that I'm named in a day and age. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm beloved by everybody, okay? I mean, I could name name one of my sons, or a daughter, the greatest ruler of the world, and I live in a day and age that I mean, if it meant something else, people would just hear the phonetic pronunciation of it, and it wouldn't mean nothing. But in this day, and even in our day, that your name, my name David, does communicate to people an address. It communicates probably some kind of vocation. It communicates people that I'm associated with. It communicates a life that I live. It communicates family that's related to me. It communicates my religious beliefs. It communicates everything about me in my name, not just David. So now I'm no longer just David. Now I'm David Lucas. And that says even more, because now you narrow it down to not just all the Davids of the world, but to all the David Lucases. And there's two of those in town, right? You don't know, any of you know the other David Lucas? I do. Him and I have become friends. And so now I'm not David Lucas anymore. I'm David Bryant Lucas. Because your name communicates who you are. And I find that God will come to you at certain points and say, what's your name? Who are you really? And here Jacob says, I am the supplanter. I am the trickster. I am the one who tries to make things happen on my own. And it's not working anymore. And I need you to bless me. And there comes a time in everyone's life when we must acknowledge before God Almighty that I am the sinner. I am the one who tried to do things my own way, and it's not working. And my dad had that moment in the year 1973 when he had to realize, and he resisted, and he gripped the pew. And there were times that he went to church and he didn't want to go forward, but the time came when he knew he had to go forward and say, I am the man who has tried to do things my own way, and it's not working, and I know that I can't control my life. And that the schemes that I'm pulling together are only bringing about destruction in my life and in my family's life. I am Jacob. I am the supplanter. But here's